Watch! Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the second
Hello.
watch. Gary, what's going on, man?
Man, not a lot. It's been a long 2 weeks. It has been a
Yeah,
long 2 weeks.
it has been a
What's
long
up,
2 weeks.
Breadbox?
Yeah, I see. I see a few people that I don't see too often, but thank you so much for being here, y'all. We have a really cool guest on tonight, but before we get there, there's some news and various other things we got to talk about. Yeah, no, we're gonna be. It's gonna be sizzling. It's gonna be crackling like bacon.
Chubby!
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, I would like you to know that I spoke to my wife, and her and the children will be camping tomorrow. So I'll be joining you at 8:15 for your game. I'll roll up a new character tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, so you actually had an opportunity to do some gaming this week.
I
I
did.
have
I
not.
played. I was a player in Chubby Funster's game, and you know what? He runs a fun game. I
Yeah,
died. I
yeah. Well,
died, and then I came back as a zombie and took. I didn't actually take somebody out, but either way, it all worked out.
yeah.
So I did get some gaming. You haven't had any gaming this week, have you?
No, I was on vacation last week, and we'll put a pin in that real quick. I did bring my Shadow Dark stuff with me because my friends, we do is we've been doing this for almost a decade. We get together once a year, the families, we rent a house for like the weekend, kind of catch up because we don't see each other all that often. And it's a good time. And my son, my best friend's daughter, she's like 15. She's kind of started getting into gaming. So I brought my Shadow Dark stuff and keep on the Borderlands just to see, but we never really did anything. We went to Niagara Falls and did a lot of drinking and eating good food and stuff. And on that note, so I heard pretty loud and clear on X that people didn't know that there wasn't a stream last week. I tried to use.
I got a
I tried.
message from Chubby actually that was like, "No second watch this week."
Yeah.
Like, sorry,
So
bro.
yeah. So I tried to use the community post thing with YouTube. I could have sworn I posted something on X and or Facebook. Clearly, I forgot. So my apologies to everyone. The silver lining is, and this is a heartfelt thank you to all the viewers. Apparently, you care. So Gary and I really appreciate that, and I'll do a better
No, it
job
was
keeping
great.
everyone informed. Freaking Disco Barbarian, like at one point he was like, "Is everything okay? Are you guys okay?" Like I think he was gonna like light the beacons and muster the Rohirrim to
I
go
think
find us.
so we've taken 2 breaks. We've missed 2 weeks since we started. And I think because like so you're a lawyer and I'm an asshole. Lawyer's just a Latin word for asshole.
Yes, that's
And we
true.
enjoy arguing, right? And because we enjoy and like I think we enjoy getting a little mad at each other
Yeah.
sometimes. So when we take that week off, I've gotten messages. Hey man, are y'all all right? Y'all kind of got into it last week. And I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, Matt's my brother. Like, don't, it's fine. Until you hear me insult his mother, we're good. You know what I
Right.
mean? We're
Yes.
fine.
Yeah. So yeah, so I appreciate everyone's concern, but we're good and we're back. With that said, while I didn't get any gaming in, I was on RPG Pundit stream last Sunday. His
Here.
encounters. We had a great conversation. I encourage everyone to check that out. We talked about like 2.5 hours. And yeah, Pundit was very
I want to be on your podcast, bro.
Pundit was very gracious. Like he gave me some compliments. He read Wretched Folklore, and he also saw a Red Room publication I had, Together to the Beyond, which is like a V extraterrestrial inspired supplement, and wanted to have me on. So I thought that was really gracious. Those who know Pundit, he can rub people the wrong way, but I just want to say publicly again, thank you, Pundit, for having me on. I hope everyone goes and checks that out. And with that said, tomorrow night, I will be on Nerd Cognito Speakeasy. They invited me on. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, honestly, but I'll be drinking bourbon, so I'm sure it'll be hilarious at some point.
Hey,
And
hey,
go ahead.
real quick. I
Sure.
mean, I try to avoid these negative sort of feelings, but like I'm available, man. I'll do a podcast. I'll take Matt. Everybody loves Matt. Every time you were on a podcast, I think it was Pundit's podcast, and I was going through my YouTube feed, and usually you're like, "Hey, man, I'm on this podcast," and I didn't see you on Pundit. You didn't say anything, and like I kind of felt like you were cheating on me a little bit, but it's okay. I understand. We're our own people.
Well, no, I actually, well, again, that was like that Sunday was like the day we got back from the vacation. So, like, I was just
Truth.
kind of like, ugh. So, again, I didn't do like, I guess, my due diligence, as
You
they
didn't
say.
you didn't social it, so.
Yeah, yeah,
But you
till
needed a
last minute.
vacation, Matt. I'm not gonna lie. Everybody who watches this channel knows that, like, you've been a little like you needed a vacation.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you got time with your family. Good for you. I'm really excited about the show tonight. I think we have like I've been waiting for this guest for months. I've been asking you, is this guy booked? Is this guy booked? Is this guy booked? I will turn it up. Bacon, tell me if I am too loud, but that's where I'm going to set it. All right, guys. Matt, you got anything else? I want to talk to Bacon, bro.
Yeah, well, real quick, this is just some news for the channel. Starting
go.
this week, I started moving all the actual plays off the YouTube channel and moving it to Rumble. So, Gaming with Lord Mattias will be I'll be streaming games from Rumble and to Facebook in moving forward. The actual plays, I appreciate everybody who's into them. They just are not popular enough, and they really screw with the algorithm on YouTube. So I'm migrating them. The only one that's going to take the longest to migrate, not that they really need to be migrated, just turned off, is the Lamentations of Elemental Evil campaign, because I happen to know a handful of people are like actively watching that. So I'm going to slowly take that off. I'll let everyone know when it's finally done and you have to go to Rumble for it. But everything else is already off. You got to go to Rumble for that. And just because I learned something from RPG Pundit, shill. See that stuff? That's all me. You can find it on itch.io or at Lulu. All right, let's get Bacon in here. Enough about me. Let's get crackling. And there he is. What's up, man?
Hello. How's everyone doing?
We're doing great. I do have a question for you. Real quick. 2 questions. What part of the country do you live in?
I live in Ohio, but I'm from Pennsylvania. Came to Ohio via California. So I'm from Pennsylvania to California, back east to Ohio. That doesn't even answer the question that you asked. I'm in Ohio.
So here's the second question. I needed to know
I'm
where
somewhere
you're
in
from
America.
because I want to know, do you prefer bacon or sausage in your breakfast tacos?
I don't generally eat breakfast tacos, but it would be bacon and probably also sausage. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that I typically don't eat breakfast tacos. Yeah.
All right. Just curious.
We have a couple super chats I want to grab real quick.
Yes, sir.
Go for it.
Disco, I don't know if you saw or heard me. I appreciate you being concerned for last week, but $5 from Disco. Thank you so much, your Yard Dog brothers and Sword sisters. Happy 4-day weekend if you get it. Finishing up some minis for Stonestein and looking forward to the episode. Thank you so much, sir. I'm looking forward to hearing about your Stonestein game. You better be tweeting about it once it's up and running. And then we've got another one from Robert Stanton. $5, sir. Thank you very much. I just want to say hello and thank you again for your time. Well, we thank you for being here. And I'm going to do some shilling, but not for me. I'm going to shill Bacon. He's got a channel. You guys should go to Better with Bacon and like and subscribe to his channel. He's doing some really interesting stuff. He's a thoughtful guy. I've been wanting to have him on the show. I've had a couple conversations with him on other on his show and Legion of Myth, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's discussion. So I guess I'll Well, you know what? I'm going to pass it off to you, Bacon. Why don't you describe your channel? Because I think that'll then segue into our topic.
Describe my channel. Okay, so I don't want to come off as like the theory guy. Like, I completely understand that none of this stuff that I talk about matters at the table, right? No one cares about bleed at the table. No one cares about what metagaming actually is at the table unless you're actively metagaming and your group doesn't like that. But like, what is it? Where does it come from? What's the actual mechanism behind it? And I like to explore those things. I like to talk about like rules as written versus rule zero, but in a very real, way. And I like to do the research and bring over facts and studies from other disciplines. So I like dramatology, ludology, philosophy, psychology, those sorts of things. And I will go and I will find the academics who have done the studies and have provided the figures to really kind of explore the different topics that I want to explore. And it's never, I try not to make it a matter of what my opinion is. Let me support that with all of these people. I try to just speak to the reality of the situation. I like, here's how it is. This is why it happens this way. This is why we perceive things this way. It's probably heady. I know I'm talking past a lot of people just because of the way that I talk, and I'm sure you can tell now I am a talker. But that's kind of what I do on the channel, right? I try some other stuff too. Like recently, I was invited to a draw steel one shot that's
I
on the
saw
channel.
that.
It
I
was.
saw that too.
I have a lot to say about that, but we are all planning on getting together and doing a sort of aftermath, how we felt, describing the game and whatnot. So I'll save all that commentary for when that happens. But yeah, that was organized by D20 Play, and I was invited by Table Runner Crispy. So thank you to both of them for that experience. But yeah, I try to do. Sometimes we talk about movies. Sometimes, most of the time, it's just games. But I try to be as intellectual and broadly supported as possible. That way, if people tell me that I'm wrong, I can just say, "Well, I've done the work. Where's yours?" So I don't have to believe you until you've shown me your work.
Spoken like a true lawyer right there. Yeah, I actually think well, you're doing something I don't typically see people do. What I see a lot of people do is sort of like they're touching upon some of the topics that you're touching upon, and they're going into some of the like the more detailed, deep, like metaphysical and epistemological analysis, but they haven't engaged with the actual academic literature on the topics. And I'm one of them. Like, I've never really thought about, hey, why don't I go check and see what so and so thinks about gaming? I just sort of like spout off the cuff, like, whatever. But I think a lot of people do just that, and because they don't engage in with the academic side of things, they miss out on potential pitfalls that their own position may have, or neglect a potential counter argument. You know what I mean? And I think that ends up muddying the waters. So I actually like that you're kind of doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the major reasons that I do it is because no one cares about my opinion. Who am I? I'm just some guy on the internet. So when and I guess more broadly, who cares about anyone's opinion on the internet? So the reason that I do what I do is because I try to show the work. Like, I want to show, rather not the work, but the results of the people who have done the work. Those are the ones that you want to look to. Those are the ones that you want to believe, that you want to trust. Because I can say anything I want on the internet. I haven't done any of the work. So I like to show the work because, who am I? No one cares what I said, but people care about what Jung says. People care about what Goffman says. People care about what Gadamer says. So that's why I like to reach to, stand on the shoulders of giants rather than, roll around in the mud.
Well, a lot of the, like, I just watched your raw versus rule zero video today, and yeah, you're name dropping a few guys I've never even heard of. So I think that's very useful for anybody who might have a more intellectual approach to this tabletop RPG thing we do. I know for me, just generally speaking, I know Gary wants to get in on this.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, I've had a curiosity about like what is actually happening at the table, and I don't know, maybe you might have been part of that conversation, but I brought up Joe Bittman's book of Antithesis, which is aside from what it's like purportedly doing, there it does kind of get into like this depth psychology of like this shared experience, like this thing that everyone's creating around the table. And I for me that like is the closest non-academic thing I've read that approximates the truth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
And it's interesting to see that the stuff is actually out there, because it's not like you just go to school to become a tabletop RPGer or becoming a game master. Well, I know WotC would like you to do that, but yeah. So I think what you're offering is very interesting and unique, and is at the very least a resource for people.
Well, thank you. I feel like that I've kind of settled on my found voice. Like, I don't think there's really many people out there doing what I do. And this isn't. I'm not trying to like puff myself up or anything. But it was just a happenstance, right? It was, I started to do the YouTube thing and I started to question myself and why I'm saying these things and is there really any support behind it? So then I started to get into the support, and it's like, hey, you're actually wrong on this one. And, let's go and tell people why, or this one is supported by this individual over here. And that kind of just, it got me more interested in doing it and sharing these things that I found, that the people have done the work, and that I just am interested in knowing. And so I don't know. I feel like I'm floundering here on this answer, but
Well, I actually, this is, I've been waiting to jump in for a few minutes.
Go for it.
I tell you, it's funny because I watch your channel, and so I don't want to interrupt. Like I'm afraid I'm going to break into your flow or something. At the same time, you say all this, and our topic tonight, right in the title of the show, are we overthinking the hobby?
Yes, I am.
So I kind of think this is a perfect place to jump in, because I've really been giving that some thought, and I have multiple answers. Are we overthinking the hobby? Well, is it a hobby to you? If it's a hobby to you, then maybe you are. Are you an aspiring third-party creator? Then maybe you're not. Are you a publisher? We talk to people who have very successful products. They have to take it seriously. So thinking about our topic, when you run your games, I don't know, I'm assuming that you're like us. Not much of our income, if anything, really comes from gaming. How seriously, no matter how serious your thoughts are, how does that affect your table? For example, let me just say this. I can imagine that if I were at Alexander McCree's table playing Acts 2, right? The way he thinks about games is really going, like, everything is pinned down. You know what I mean? How seriously do you take it? How seriously should we take it? Should everybody take it the same degree? I think we take it too seriously.
I agree. I think we take it too seriously for sure, but it's like, it's not a bad thing to take it seriously. It allows me to sort of, I can dive deeply into something that I'm extremely interested in, and I can find the justifications for the different things that happen at the table. Now, I kind of kicked off by saying that none of what I really talk about matters at the table, right? Like, I did that Raw versus Rule Zero video, and when we were doing Draw Steel yesterday and the day before, I read one of my character abilities that I didn't like, and I just went to the DM Tom, and I was like, "Hey, I'm changing this. I'm just changing it." So right, because it doesn't matter at the table. Like you can talk about whether or not it matters all day long, what your philosophy is, what your opinion is, but at the table, all of that breaks down. And
Yep.
because I play at a table because I want to play with the people at the table. Sometimes it's because I want to experience. In fact, I find that quite a bit frequently, I want to experience a new system. But generally speaking, I'm going to experience that system with the people at the table. So, it depends on the people. It depends on what they're looking for, what I'm looking for. If I want to pay more attention to the system, because that's what I'm really interested in engaging with, just to learn it, that's completely different than playing at the table with the guys that I played with in Draw Steel, Crispy and Uriah and Mike and Dean and Tom, because that was the intention there was to see if we could really stay in character to a very high degree over a long period of time. And so that's a different table. So you take different things at different levels of seriousness. So at that table, thought it was okay to toss that one particular rule for the ability, because it was going to help us achieve the goal of staying in character longer and more intensely. So, it just depends on the table, really.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that.
Do it.
I think thinking about this stuff, this is funny because this is not the position I planned on taking tonight, but I think doing the kind of like hard analysis does make you better because I'm a firm believer, and this is like a general life philosophy. Okay. Philosophy according to Lord Mattias. The more you understand a thing, the more you have control over the thing. You're never going to have perfect control because, we're human. We have limited, perspective on this thing called reality. But the more you understand something, the more I think you can control the thing. And I think because if you're really interested in becoming a game master, thinking about as annoying as some of the debates are online, thinking about rules as written, thinking about rule zero, or thinking about one-to-one time versus flex time, thinking about metagaming versus, four-dimensional game, all that stuff. I think it will improve your game. And I think it does come to the table. Now, that being said, I think there's definitely a difference between the hardcore analysis and the kind of conversation that is happening versus the application.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to the 4D guys, their categorization, I think is
Who are they? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I said that because Crispy's in chat. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, I'm picking on them because
about to go like off the bridge.
Yeah.
No, I actually got into a conversation with them in the Discord because in one of my videos I kept saying the 4D guys, and they were like, "Why aren't you including yourself, dude? You're one of us." So that was kind of a callback to that. But please continue. I'm sorry.
Do you consider yourself one of the 4D guys? And I only ask that because if we're going to be answering questions, that is sort of a frame of reference we need to be aware of.
I will say that they generously include me, but I am petrified of misrepresenting the philosophy. So I don't want to come across as an authority. Because Crispy really there he is. You wound me. I'm kidding, Crispy, of course. Crispy's really he's very praxis oriented, so he can answer the questions. And there are others too. It's not just Crispy. I don't want you to think that it's just him. He's just the one that I generally tend to interact with. But yeah, I don't want to misrepresent, so I don't want to come across as an authority. So you can ask me the questions and I will render answers, but I will likely look to them for confirmation, just because I don't want to miscommunicate or get a misunderstanding out there. That doesn't seem
well, I think Table Runner Crispy it says he's claiming you 100%.
Well, I there we go. I am truly claimed.
Oh, by the way, I think we should probably get Crispy on the show sometime. I like a lot of his takes too. He's an interesting guy.
I agree. I've every time he comes up, I'm like, Let's talk to this guy.
But I want to go back to, yeah, so like the 4D categorizations is like kind of an example of how, like, I think the deep thinking of the hobby is actually helpful.
Mhm.
And I appreciate, actually, when we had Max Boyvon on, he said when they first came out, it came off as like a prescriptive sort of element when really it's descriptive. And I think that's incredibly important distinction, because looking at 4D as a descriptive sort of theory gives you so much insight as to the types of players you're having at your table,
Mhm.
and how to kind of describe and handle the type of game you want to have. I frankly think, like, my gaming table right now, like my in-person gaming crew, we shift dimensions over the course of the day. We're talking shit, blah blah blah, past the Cheetos, oh sweet dude, you critted, to really intense role playing. And I think that's important to know. And I think as a game master, when you're putting together a campaign, having that kind of idea in mind can help you understand exactly what you want to get out of the game. Going back to my baptism theory, like, if you want to have something really intense, understanding that 4D, I think it would be helpful, right? Same thing with like the bros. Like, do you really want to have something that intense? Having an understanding of how the bros do things can assist you in putting together that campaign. So I think the conversation, these like deep conversations, actually are important, and it's why Gary and I are doing the second watch. Like, I
Yeah.
can't sit down and write a script and then just start talking. I need to have a conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And to be clear, I didn't say, and I'm not saying you put this on me, I'm just clarifying myself. I didn't say it's unimportant. What I said was that it doesn't matter at the table. And I think there's a distinction to be made there. I think it is very important, but I think whether or not, and let me be even more clear. Knowing these concepts, knowing these different structures or the frame analysis or all of these different things will help you better identify things during play. And I think that it is helpful. And I think that it does give you a leg up. What I mean when I say this doesn't matter at the table is that, like, whether or not bleed is good or bad, no one's going to have that conversation at the table, right? They're going to say, well, I'm experiencing bleed or I'm not. I think it's a crock of crap. That's what matters at the table, is how you're playing in the moment. The discussion, that high level discussion, doesn't really matter at the table. And sometimes even that kind of discussion, depending on what the topic is, isn't really going to help you, right? Like, it doesn't matter whether or not bleed. It doesn't matter whether or not you're a fan of it or you dislike it. I thoroughly hate it. That's not going to matter in the moment when someone's playing if they're going to describe their experience in the terms of bleed.
Right.
So we can have the conversation afterwards about whether or not it's real, but if at the table, that's not going to matter. Now, I do think talking about these things does matter. I am of the mind, and I've mentioned this to you before. I think that role playing, specifically tabletop role playing games, should be considered on the same level as film and literature and music. And while they don't produce an art object, they are an outlet of human creativity. And though there is a temporal nature to them, there's a fleeting temporalness to them, because once it happens, it's never going to happen again. Theater has that same, so like each performance is different. Each one you have to watch, or you're never going to experience that particular performance again. So
That's
I
interesting.
I think that, and let me end there because there's a lot more to say, but I don't want to take the whole.
No,
No, this is.
I,
Oh, go
I
ahead. Go ahead.
like that. And what you just said reminds me, this is going to be, oh my God, I'm going to show my age. Jerry Garcia used to talk about how once you play a note on stage, it's not yours anymore. Once it hits the air, it kind of becomes everybody's. And what you were saying just really reminded me of that. I'm curious though, with your rules is written, rule zero,
Mhm.
with your approach, how does all that fit in? Like, are you a rules is written? These are the rules. Are you a rule rule of cool? Kind of like, I mean, like, how does all that translate into how you run games?
So I don't run a lot of games. I play a lot of games. It's actually been a very long time. And in fact, I had this conversation on stream. I can't remember with who or when. It might have been with Mike. It might have been with, no, it was with Daniel. So Primeval Fantasy asked me about my players at my table. I don't run a lot of games, but I do play a lot of games. So it doesn't really affect me in the running at the moment because I'm not running a lot of games. However,
That's interesting, by the way. That's a good thing for people to know because I assumed you were a referee, judge, game master, dungeon master. So that is a
right.
great thing to know that you are
Well, at the
primarily a
moment,
player.
and this sort of kicked off when I started doing the channel. At the moment, I am trying to explore as many systems as I can, and I think that doing that from the player perspective gets me a little bit more information than I would as a GM, and that's probably due to the way that I prefer to play role-playing games. So I prefer the 4D style. I prefer to be in character as much as possible, as long as possible. I feel like there's more information for me to gain from the player side than the GM side. So that's a choice that I've made in the moment.
Hey,
Um,
Matt, would you mind
I
highlighting?
already,
Oh,
I was already
okay.
on it.
Thank you.
Um,
There's also one by OSR Dwarf that's really good behind that after we're done with this.
Okay. Yeah. So Chubby says it's important to think deeply about game design or GM behavior for the same reason it is important to watch game film after a sporting match. Instinct is not always right. You need objective distance. I agree with that.
I
That's
agree too.
why,
100%.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I think game masters need to talk more, especially in this hobby, instead of yelling at each other through YouTube. you know, um,
Twitter,
or
X.
Twitter, X, Facebook, whatever, social media. So, but I agree with that. And then, is it this one? There is
There
no
is no
rules.
rules is written. That's a false idea. Everyone has table halaka from OSR Dwarf. I disagree. There is a such thing as rules is written. And I think the magic behind many games can only be found if you begin the game strictly rules as written. After you are familiar with that system, like for example, I've been playing BX or BECME since I was 9 or 10 years old. I feel confident enough that I understand that system that I can tweak it. But for the most part, I think rules as written is quite important, at least in the first 6 to 12 sessions. My
I was a
opinion.
I was about to strongly disagree with Gary until he qualified it. Yeah, I think rules is written. Okay, well, one, I am not a rules is written guy in the sense of I'm going to play this game only rules is written because blah blah blah, unless it's the experience I'm looking for. I am, I guess, this might get me in a little bit of trouble, a classic Rule Zero game master. Like I do think I have that. What's the word I'm looking for? Authority to tweak a system, but for the purpose of the experience I'm trying to create for my players. And I think, and this is something I wanted to actually talk to you a little bit about, Bacon, after listening to your video on this. I think classically Rule Zero is very different from how people look at it today. Like what they're
Oh yeah.
looking at today is like willy-nilly, and I'm not that at all. I how you actually defined and sort of reconcile the two in your video is exactly how I look at it. Once I sort of see how a game works and I look at the particular idiosyncrasies of my players, I'll start tweaking things to make sure everyone's having like this good time based on, you know, their personal preferences. Like like you use the example of encumbrance, right? You really can't get rid of it, but you could swap it out with a simpler system if it's going to make everyone happy. You know what I mean? But that's something we're actually wrestling with right now. My Gods of the Forbidden North campaign. I might swap out the coin system with Lamentations slot system because I like that better. A, B, just kind of just to annoy my friends because they like to pick on me about Lamentations, and hopefully by the end of the game we've completely shifted over to Lamentations. They'll never know, and I'll just be like, "Aha! You played Lamentations and you didn't even know." But yeah,
I keep trying
I
to
think
figure out how to switch my West Marches campaign into Acts 2. Like, can I get away with this?
What's the system currently?
it's the
OSC.
rules like.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's running OSC. I'm running Rule Cyclopedia.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but I think
You
you
probably
mentioned-
switch. It might be different. It might be different. I don't know though. I don't know how different it would be.
It wouldn't be that much different. It's like honestly, like I just like the way Lamentations, for example, handles a lot of like the basic rules of BX. If I keep the spells from Rule Cyclopedia and just swap things out, I don't think they would notice. Honestly,
Okay.
I really don't think they'd notice at all. But yeah. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I say that all to say that I think there's something to be said for keeping an open enough mind for the game master to start tweaking things specifically for the idiosyncrasies of the table.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, first, I disagree that there's no such thing as rules as written. To get back to, I think it was OSR Dwarf who said that. I think there is definitely something as rules. There is such thing as rules as written. There is, and I brought this up in the video in the Rule Zero video. There is a gentleman named Hans-Georg Gadamer, and he proposes that games play the players as much as the players play the games, or he might even suggest that the games play the players, period, that the games are the subjects and not the actual players. So in that regard, it's the rules that shape the players. The rules propose a type of player, and this comes from Arseth, Espen Arseth. He says that there is a implied player that the rules will tell you they're expecting to create. And then there's the historical player, which is the actual player of the game, which may or may not match to the implied player. So I do believe there is such thing as rules as written, because how else is the game going to imprint onto the player to tell them how they should be behaving? Having said that, I greatly agree with what both of your opinion is. I think that, first, within the context of role-playing games, Rule Zero it's a rule, right? It's been around from the start. It is a rule, but what that means is that it's part of the implied player. The game implies that the player will be using Rule Zero, maybe not always, but it's there, it's present. And so someone who chooses to do that will do so, but it has to be from within the game itself, having already obtained an understanding of the rules as they've been written, because that's where Rule Zero exists. It exists within the rules. So you have to be within the rules. I feel like I maybe upset Gary a little bit with what I was saying.
I don't know. I'm in. So Bacon, look, I get what you're saying, and I think if you've been game mastering for a while, you'll understand that we're phasey. There are waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're doing this kind of thing, and then you're kind of like, oh shit, I'm tired of this. I want to do this. And I've been running a very rules is written, incredibly procedural OSC game, and it's had me looking towards systems like the Year Zero engine, just to get some more narrative and stuff inside that. I think rules is written is incredibly important, and I think that Rule Zero is misinterpreted. I think if you I'm not going to say this person's name, but if you watch YouTubers videos where they talk about Rule Zero, they confuse it with the rule of cool.
Yes.
Right. Rule Zero
sure.
is like, hey, there's a muddy spot in the rules, and this is what the judge is for.
Yeah.
The judge is going to be the arbiter of this sort of weird edge case that we don't really understand, right? And I think people confuse that with the rule of cool. And rule of cool is like, wow, fuck, man, that was so cool. who cares about the dice, man? Just let it happen, bro. You know what I mean? And it's this very like, I don't agree with rule of cool, whereas rule 0 to me makes sense.
For sure.
I just think that when we talk about, rule 0 or whatever, it's very muddy for some people. I just feel like it is not, people don't even know what their fuck they're talking about when they say
I
rule
agree.
0.
I
I
agree.
agree. Yeah, that's one of the problems I've had with a lot of these discussions online. And going back to, your channel, Bacon, like you try to
Death Angel Shadow, rule 0 does not equal rule of cool. No, it does not.
Well,
They're
that's
two
what the
different
exclamation point
things.
means. Exclamation
Okay,
equals means
thank
does
you.
not
Sorry,
equal.
I want to make
He
sure.
agrees with you.
yeah.
All right, you're on my side. I love you, man.
Good job, man.
please hit like and subscribe. Anyway,
Please hit like. I'm not drunk and angry. Come on.
but this is one of the reasons why I like your channel, because like you actually are parsing out all these definitions and really looking at it and clearing it up, because Gary's right. There's a lot of people and I don't know if it's because of like a lack of understanding or sort of like a willful misrepresentation.
I blame
just
Ginny D.
because it generates clicks and rage bait and stuff. I don't know, but I think it unfortunately muddies the water, because
Well, I
I
think
look.
rule of cool, just to interrupt you briefly,
Go ahead.
I apologize, but I think rule of cool is an outcrop of as long as you're having fun. It's an outcrop of that. And I think that is it is a very ham-fisted way of looking at the hobby, because you can have fun doing anything. You can have fun going to the bowling alley or the cafe, having a fancy dinner, watching a movie. There's a reason why you picked role-playing games. It's something other than the fun. And so you kind of have to drill down on that, which means it's not as long as you're having fun. It's as long as you're having fun playing the role-playing game. And what does this other piece mean? What does playing the role-playing game mean? So I think that the rule of cool it's an erroneous outcrop of as long as we're having fun, because you can have fun doing anything.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I want to highlight something OSR Dwarf said. No, you have to accept that TTRPGs are expressed with language, and the imprecision of language requires human understanding, which is never uniform. It isn't like mathematics. I think he's responding to like the rules as written versus rule 0 stuff. I actually kind of agree with this, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see in a lot of games these ideas, as expressed by Gary in the original games. Hey, like, change things as you need. I do think you're going to run into some of these. Now, again, I think you need to have an understanding why like encumbrance as a concept is in the game, but how concept is expressed, I think, can be manipulated, if that makes sense.
Can I real quick for OSR Dwarf? Oh man, you took it down.
Oh, I'll put it back. I'll put it back.
Yeah, put it back.
I gotta go find it now. There it is.
Okay. Dwarf, I love you, man. You're here like almost
all the
every
time.
Week, yeah, all the time. I love you, man. But you wrote, no, you have to accept that TTRPGs are expressed with language, and the imprecision of language requires human understanding, which is never uniform. It isn't like mathematics. And I would disagree with that, because when you go to reference rules, 90% of the time you're looking for a table. You're looking for numbers. You've got a bonus or a penalty of +1 to 3, -1 to 3. These are fairly concrete rules. Yeah, that's all. I disagree. I don't see, and after having done this OSC game and doing like raw OSC, like every rule serves a purpose. And if you don't play through that rule and you don't play through that system long enough to understand that, okay, this is hampering my game somehow, until you get to that point, I don't understand why anybody's changing anything. Because if I sit down to play poker with somebody and they tell me I don't like that rule after I just won the pot, I'm going to be upset.
That's yeah, but I've seen I've seen that analogy used so many times. Not that exact like a poker, but they use like Monopoly, this, that, and the other thing. I think that's a bad analogy
No,
because
it's a game.
TTRPGs are a different type of game, though. And again, I've said this a couple of times. We're gaming the imagination. We're trying to put rules to our play of pretend, and you cannot rein that in. It's limitless.
Well, hold
And
on though. You can
oh,
though, because when you
here we
agree
go.
to play a TTRPG, you're agreeing to a set of constraints. That's what the rules
Fuck
really
yeah.
act as. So you are expressing your imagination, but you're expressing it within a specific system.
You're right, but like
Absolutely.
but any kind of homebrew or house rule is going to either happen before the game begins
Mhm.
or when like this edge case comes into play. Winning the pot in a poker is not an edge case. And if there is a house rule that's going to change the way you play poker, like hey, we're going to use the jokers, for example, that comes before the game begins. So like I just find that analogy just not good. Anyway, continue
I
on.
think that's wrong. Hold on. I think that's wrong. Hold on real quick. Because you're buying you're buying a game. It has rules, and the rules are the things that define the game. It's the difference between Castles and Crusades and AD&D first edition. It's the difference between BX and BECME. Not much, but there's a reason we buy these different games. If we're just playing different games, but we don't like the initiative system for this one on first session, and we're gonna just replace it with this, I don't think you're getting the full experience.
Well, replacing something after the first session, I would chalk that up to just poor game mastery. But if you've been playing for 6 months, however long it takes for you to feel like you have a grasp of the rules and the consequences and of the rules and the interplay of the rules with everything, and then you decide, hey guys, this initiative system is just not working for us.
No,
Let's
hold
talk
on.
about changing it. I think that I think that
Hold
you're
on.
perfectly
Highlight, if you get a chance, highlight Stephanie's. She said TTRPGs aren't limited to a set of rules, though. But I would disagree. I would completely disagree, because I would say that the particular RPG you're playing is limited to those rules.
Well, hold on a minute though. Let's really open the conversation up. What game is really limited to a set of rules? People play Monopoly with home rules. There's an entire category
Sure.
of Magic the Gathering that's come out of player designed rules. Now, those have since been adopted and incorporated into the actual, rules canon, but you can
But those
house rule
home
anything.
rules, okay, that's fine. But those home rules for Magic didn't come up in year 1 or 2.
No, they
They
didn't.
came
They came,
they
yes.
came up after people had experience with the system and understood how the sausage was made, right? So
Yes.
after they had so look, I'm all for, dude, I've been playing BX since I was fucking 8 years old. I will bend that system over in whatever way I decide. Okay. And I feel confident in doing so because I am so familiar with it. But let's say I switch to the year 0 engine, right? And it's my first campaign. I feel like Rule of Cool and Rule 0, because they're confused. They're kind of fused together when they should be different things. I feel like and I feel like it's more at the table. It's not even in planning your game or prepping your game. A player says something cool, and all of a sudden the dice don't fucking matter, right? And I think that's wrong. I just think it's
well.
wrong.
I want to get to something
Sorry,
Paladin said because you asked me to highlight it
I did.
in our
Sorry.
chat. No, that's fine. But I think we're touching on something that I think not enough people are talking about. Maybe they are talking, and I'm just not seeing the conversation. But you bring up all these different games, and whether they're some offshoot of BX or a completely different game, like Rule Zero, or excuse me, Year Zero game engine. But isn't there like principles of the game, the RPG, the tabletop RPG, that sort of supervene over these different rule sets that we can, through just sort of comparing and contrasting and sort of like doing a deep analysis and say, okay, this is how you're supposed to, broadly speaking, approach the tabletop role-playing game. Like, and couldn't that also include kind of like what the bros are doing with one-to-one time and the bro SR method, and maybe even the 4D method, include like this concept of like, hey, if something's not working for your table, so long as you have an understanding of the nuts and bolts, tweak it. Rule 0.
I think that, oh man, here we go. I think that if you play a system and within 2 to 4 sessions, you realize that you need to house rule something, you might be playing the wrong system. Boom, roasted.
No. We're about to go down like a rabbit hole. Oh, did you get some sound effects? You son of a bitch.
Somebody clapped for me.
I don't know what we've talked about this before, whether and what system you're playing and whatnot. I mean, I just sort of feel like you're pigeonholed when you start talking about that. You're moving yourself into a corner, backing yourself into a corner where house ruling and home brewing should just be completely off the table. And I think that is a problem that a lot of people who push for raw end up falling into. It's just like, I can mod Year Zero, and I thought about it with and we've had this discussion with like The Walking Dead, by borrowing from other Rule Zero games, Oh, y'all good?
Sorry,
You didn't.
I had a slight mishap.
But yeah, I don't think all of a sudden, like if I think, well, one of the examples I have is like, I don't like havens, or how havens are handled in The Walking Dead. Like, why couldn't they use what was done in Mutant Year Zero, which is like really expansive? I think you can easily plug and play that. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm not. Should I not play The Walking Dead now? No, obviously that would be absurd. Anyway, I'm sorry, okay, Bacon. What do you think?
No.
No,
yeah,
I feel like I'm the boring milquetoast guy here, right? Like, I don't, whether or not you Rule 0 or not, my goal was to just help people understand what they were doing when they do it. I'm sure that some of the things that I had to say are going to persuade some people to play rules as written, and some of the things I had to say are going to persuade rules to play or to use Rule 0. Now, I personally prefer to do rules as written. And I think, well, much like what Gary said, if you are playing a game where you find that you have to house rule something, and it's something like big, or maybe not even big, but it's something that sort of caught your eye first 2-4 sessions, you might be playing the wrong system. It might be time to find a system that does what you want it to, or that, ostensibly creates the player that you want it to create. But I'm not going to, like, I don't take a hard line against Rule 0. I don't take a hard line because I think that, and this goes back to our conversation, Matt, about baptism and about, GMing being an act of game design. And it is not only, it's secondary game design, right? So it's designed within a pre-designed system, but I think that that's a position that you can take. I think that it's very well reasoned and very well realized. So I'm like, I don't know, call me a fence sitter, but like, I don't really have an opinion strong in one direction or the other. I get that there are people out there who do. I know that my preference is rules as written, but at the same time, I also have a 4D preference. So like, and this kind of goes back to the game that we played yesterday. Like, there are games, just speaking in general terms, there are games that will fight the way that you like to play. So if you like to be really in character all the time and heavy role play, there are going to be games that just, like DCC is a really good one. You're constantly having to reference a table. You're not in character when you're referencing the table. And so does it really make sense for me to try and remove those tables from DCC? Right. Or does it make more sense for me to just go, you know what? This isn't the kind of game that's really conducive to the style of play that I want. I think that the latter is correct. I think going, you know what? it's a great game. I love DCC. I love the artwork. I love the feel of it. I think that it's really great. It's got that 70s fantasy feel to it. But if I'm looking for an in-character experience, that's not going to give it to me. So I have to find another system that will.
But I don't think what I'm talking about is necessarily about style of play. I'm just talking about like the idiosyncrasies of the table. Like, again, like we're here to entertain ourselves through this game, and for whatever reason, if I have again, I'm just going to pick on encumbrance because that's an easy one. Everyone hates encumbrance. If for some reason my table is struggling with encumbrance because they don't like the math or whatever, swapping a slot-based system into that is not going to fundamentally alter the game. It will fundamentally alter if I remove encumbrance entirely, and I would never recommend that. But just switching out a slot-based system, and that's what I think is one of the strengths of the OSR, by the way, is the plug-and-play nature of all the subsystems that you encounter. But I'm still playing I'm still playing the rule cyclopedia.
I think. Can I say something real quick? I think that
Sure.
that BX or OD&D or whatever, AD&D, whatever, D&D in general. I think there's kind of, when we talk about this, it is really hard because of the modular nature of those older games. Whereas when we're looking at new games, when I bring up, I love fucking Fantasy Flight, the Star Wars narrative.
Oh,
dice,
yeah.
right?
I'll defend that. I'll defend that.
Yeah. Or you look at like, Year Zero engine, those are complete, right? Like they're their whole systems. They are not modular systems. So I do wonder if we trip ourselves when we're talking about games. Those OSR games, they are built to be modified. I mean, it says so in AD&D. There's no browser that can tell me that it doesn't. Gary Gygax didn't say modify your game the way you need to modify it, right?
That is correct, sir. Yeah.
So we have that, but then we have these newer games. They seem to be more synergistic, and one rule relies upon another, upon another, upon another. So I do think it makes this conversation difficult.
I think you might be right on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to get to Paladin, and I'm going to answer this question really, really quick. He asked, what is play? And I want to say that when me and Matt and Brian started our first podcast together, we talked about this a few times, and I'm just going to give you my opinion real quick, and then we're going to move on. What is play? If you are a GM and you are prepping a game, you are playing that game. You may be alone, you may not be at the table, but you are participating in an aspect of playing that game. Your mind is on that game. You're not at the table. It's not rolling dice, but it is an aspect of play. Character creation, in my opinion, is a part of the game, and it is play. Play is when you are focusing on your game, prepping, rolling characters at the table. We spend so much time with a pen in our hand and a fucking spiral notebook, planning for a game that may never happen. How many games have you planned that have never even gotten to the table? But for a DM, for a referee, for a GM, that is play. It is satisfying. Bam, there you go. Boom, roasted. There we go.
Boom, roasted. Hey, Matt, can you pick up BGD's most recent comment? It's at 23:57:21. Starts off raw.
I'm scrolling. I'm looking for it. There it is.
Bacon, we're already an hour into this. I thought we had started like 20 minutes ago. Go ahead.
This has been a really intense conversation.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm really thankful for it. But first of all, hello, Chris. How are you? I agree that raw is fuzzier, and I think that this goes back to what Gary was saying and what I have said, but I'll certainly restate that Rule 0 generally is a part of the games that say it's a part of it, right? So if your game says, hey, there's a Rule 0 here, then the implied player that Arseth talks about is a player who will potentially change the rules as necessary or needed within any given system. And I think that is what's providing that fuzziness that you're keying into. So I'm not sitting here saying that you shouldn't do it, or that it's bad to do it, or that it's not possible, or that you should do one or the other. I don't think that's ever really been my view. And not that you're saying this is, just to be very clear about this. I think that in the games where rule 0 is a provision, it's a rule within the game, then the implied player that game is establishing is one who will change the rules. And I think that that's what I have to say about that.
Well, I thought your analysis on this was actually really good, and I really felt that you've kind of thread the needle of this like tension, because we see this a lot. That's why I had that whole baptism theory. I tried to like tease out. And I generally agree with what you're saying, and sad. It's actually good that he left, because I'm about to give Gary.
Now you get the dump on him.
No, I never let him know when I'm giving him credit. Like,
Gotcha.
but I think he's got a good point that like some of these other games that have come out beyond D&D, they're a little bit tighter. Like you used Axe,
Yes.
and that's a great example, and that is in the BX line of games. But I'm thinking like Ascendant. I still don't know how to play that game, but
I haven't read Ascendant, but I have heard things about that system.
Yeah, it is an offshoot of like the face rip system, but it's very mathematical. And it does imply a type of player, someone who's really going to like crunching those numbers and really try to like get into that level of simulation where
now,
like
under Arseth's view, there's also something called in fact, the name of the article that I'm getting most of this from is called I Fought the Law: Transgressive Play and the Implied Player. So what that essentially is driving at is that sometimes the player that's implied in the rules is not the historical player of the game. Sometimes the historical player, and when I say historical player, I just mean someone who's actually played it. An actually engaged player of the game is someone who takes a look at the rules and goes, after that, I'm not doing that. And so there is such a thing as transgressive play. There is such a thing as a transgressive player when we're talking about rules. So they transgress against the rules. They say, no, I'm not doing that. So that is a part of this conversation as well, just to be clear.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I hear what you're saying. But yeah, like Ascendant, I want to like the game. You know what I mean? I'll even say this about Axe. I want to like Axe too. But for me right now, Axe is a reference the tool, really, because I'm just not that into this simulation style game. I like having sort of like the loosey goosiness of classic, I guess BX OSR style play. And I think go just to again borrow from the 4D guys. I shift between like 3D, 2D quite a bit when I'm presenting and when I'm running a game. So I think there is something to the not just the implied setting from a rule set, but also the implied player. And I've never heard it expressed like that before. So I find that really interesting. Well, I'm going to throw Paladin's question to you. How do you define play?
Man, that's a whole other video. I knew we were going to come around to this, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wow, that's a gigantic topic. Play is a huge topic. What is play? What is a game? You ask 75 different people, you're going to get 75 different answers.
I agree.
And quite honestly, and I saw Crispy, he said, I bet Bacon has an answer for this. In the moment right now, unfortunately, I do not. It's something that I would really have to sit down and consider. It's not something that I have just ready to kind of, and it's not that I haven't considered it. I have considered what a game is. I have considered what art is. I have criteria for art. So that I have solved, at least for my own self. Game, play, those are really, really big topics. Those are topics as old as humanity. Humans have been playing for as long as they've been around. Humans have been playing games for as long as they've been around. So like it's a much larger topic. It's kind of like role play. Like, what is role play? You can give me an answer, and I've had an answer for role play for the longest time. But and this is again going back to the 4D Discord. One of the members there named Yekrep, he is currently in the middle of some type of training. And he brought to everyone's attention, but it really stuck out in my mind that there are types of training that involve hiring unfortunate amputees and putting them in roles so that medics can sort of be thrust into what might be a like a real scenario, kind of like a how do you triage when you're in the middle of combat and these are the people who are injured. What do you do? Those individuals are role playing, but they're not role playing for their own immersion. They're role playing for the medic's immersion, which like completely blows the door off of what you might define role play as.
That's interesting.
It's different in a role-playing game, right? So there are very specific things that we're doing in role-playing games. But role play is a much broader category than you would originally think. And to sit here, if you would ask me today, pardon me, if you would have asked me yesterday what role-playing is, I would have given you an answer that didn't include role-playing for the immersion of a trainee, because that's not something that would have crossed my mind. Right. So I don't, in this moment, feel like I'm prepared to really give an answer on what play is or even what a game is. But these are things that I have thought about, and I'm sure they'll make it into a video at some point. I'm just not prepared.
There you go. Well, we'll look forward to that video. I'm going to go grab myself a drink because I should have before the stream started.
Go for it.
But I wanted to highlight Daryl's question here because it's to you, Bacon. Do you have a take on certain meta currencies? I don't know what meta currencies he's actually talking about, if there was anything specific. So Daryl, if you can let us know in the chat. But
so if you're asking me my opinion, generally speaking, I really do not like meta currencies because of my preferred style of play. My preferred style of play is in character play, as deeply in character and for as long as I can play in character as possible. Meta currencies are done at a player level. So they're done in like the game frame or the rules frame. For that reason, I tend to dislike them. That doesn't mean I won't play a game that has meta currencies. In fact, I would consider hit points a meta currency. Your character doesn't know how many hit points they have. They just know that they're injured and bleeding or winded or, you know, whatever they're experiencing in the moment. So I would actually count hit points as a meta currency. One of the very first videos I did was me hating all over hit points. I just don't like hit points.
Interesting.
So I generally speaking, do not like meta currencies, but that doesn't mean I won't play a game that has them because, again, my goal is to play with the people. And if they want to play a game with meta currencies, I'll do it.
Bacon, I'm curious. Are you looking for mechanics to get out of the way of the role play? Or do you think that mechanics can add, like, I mean, obviously, people who are like headlong into Acts 2, the mechanics are part of it, right? For them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I feel like you're looking for something that kind of ascends the mechanics a little bit.
I typically look for things that ascend the mechanics. However, that doesn't mean that there can't be a rare mechanic that really adds to the experience. And I have what I think is a good example, and it's a board game example. So in a game where you're not really role-playing, it's a game from Queen Games called Via Appia, the Appian Way. And it is about the stonecutters who built the Appian Way to Rome. And one of the mechanics in the game is you take these wooden tiles and you place them on the back of, it's like a coin pusher. It's like a cardboard coin pusher. So then you use the cardboard mechanism and it pushes out the stones, and you use those stones, there's large, medium, and small, to build the Appian Way. That on a board game is it's engaging. I would even say it's probably engrossing. Not really immersive because you're not really playing in character. You're just a dude at a table playing this board game. But I think that there are mechanics that they don't occur frequently, but I think that when they do, they're very noticeable and they can help you become engaged, engrossed, or immersed.
See, one of the problems. I'm gonna catch hell for this. All right, when Table Runner Crispy comes on, he can tell me all the reasons I'm wrong for this. One of the things about 4D that kind of turns me off is that I like the mechanics. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah, sure.
really like it. I like the numbers. I think metagaming is just a part of the game. And I think the game aspect sometimes is left out with the 4D philosophy. You know, now that being said, as a kid playing these games, let's face it, one dude knew the rules. He guided everybody through making characters, and really the players just told him what they wanted to do, and he knew what the mechanics were to make sure that it got done.
I
But
don't know if
I do feel like it kind of shoves the game aspect of it kind of over to the side, you know, for the immersion.
Just want to bring up Death Angel Shadow super chat $2. Thank you very much, sir. Can you briefly explain 4D and 3D in the TTRPG context? I don't know if you guys have already kind of gotten into that or not.
I have not, and I defer to Crispy on this, but I'll try. Right. So 3D is direct engagement with the game, usually to the exclusion of everything else during play. And then 4D is that same idea, but with a focus on the reduction of roll distance, which is a Goffman concept. It's the divide between you and your character. You will always know that you are a real person. And then there's your character, but there are things that you can do to bridge that gap to get further inside the head of your character. So that's really where the focus of 4D is. And again, I would defer to Crispy on this to, either say yes or no, yay or nay. But that's how I would define them. So 3D is engagement with the game exclusively during play. There might be a couple of like out of character interactions with the GM. I'm not exactly clear on how much out of character is allowed at 3D, but I know that generally speaking, it's not much. It's far less than you would think, I imagine. And then 4D would be the reduction of roll distance and really getting inside the head of your character.
Yeah, Mr. Max Boivon at Reactionary. God, I can never remember the title of his YouTube channel. Reactionary Game Mastery or something like that.
Reactionary Principle Gaming, I think it is.
That's it. He's got a really good video on breaking down 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension, and 4 dimension. And it's really in like simple, plain language terms that I found very useful. And again, I think of it more of a description, like when I'm sitting at a table and I have the one player shoving food into his face, drinking a beer, and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna roll my die and attack the guy." Hey, did you see the game yesterday? Buffalo. I'm from Western New York, so the Buffalo Bills are a religion here. So like,
it's
yeah.
Again. Sorry.
I know. But so I know what a 1D guy is, and because of that, I know what kind of game he's looking for, and I can kind of tailor to him. But then I also have players at my table who are 2-dimensional, very into the tactics, very into the game mechanics, want to build the best character they can to beat the game. And then I have the role players, the 3D guys. We really don't do any 4D stuff, though. I would be totally open to it because it sounds fun, and I'd want to try it. But we have another super chat. Whoops, wrong one. Hold on a sec.
Hey,
there
real
it
quick,
is.
Matt. Oh, I just wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Do the super chat. Do the super chat.
Super chats. Okay, $2 from OSR Dwarf. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. 4D sounds like what Abraham L. Jaguar tries to do. I think I know that guy's channel. I think you're right.
I do not know that guy's channel.
Yeah,
I don't know if
he does. He's done some like stuff for the Red Room, actually. He's a fan of the Red Room stuff. Yes, Chubby, and they're the greatest team ever. Anyway, gotta support the Bills, bro.
Was that a compulsory reply, or do you actually believe it?
Even all the way down here, there are Josh Allen fans, just so you know.
Yeah. Josh Allen is the second coming of Christ. Okay.
When you say down here, where are you, Gary?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep, Texas. I can't get out. It's too big. I just can't run fast enough or far enough before someone catches me. Reminds me I have children in the state. Anyhow.
All right. So 4D. Oh, nerd. I wanted to look at this one too. 4D is much simpler than people make it sound. It's just a game mindset of never leaving character perspective and players having some shared GM ability to create reasonable things in a scene. Yeah. That's my understanding of it and why I think it's cool. And I think I slip into 4D with people a lot when I'm a player, because I think it's kind of ridiculous to expect my game master to describe in painstaking detail like I'm reading a chapter from Tolkien, what's in the room, right? So I should be able to say, if I'm in a tavern, I grab the mug on the table and smash the dude in the face with it,
Yes.
without having to first ask, hey, is there a mug? Yeah.
Is there a table? Is there a mug? Is there a chair? Yeah. And that's John Miller just asked the question, constrained character co-creation. That's essentially what it is. It's just using something in the current situation that should be there. So if you walk into a kitchen, you just assume there's a toaster there. You don't have to ask the GM. You just assume that it's there and you interact with the toaster however you want. If you're on a beach, famously is the driftwood example. If you want a piece of driftwood, you just go over and pick it up. You don't have to ask if there's a piece of driftwood there. And that's what's meant by constrained character co-creation. And that's usually like the levels of co-creation are usually decided before the game when you draw up the social contract. And when you create something, the GM can also act on that. So it's not just a matter of, we have to travel 6,000 miles. Okay, well, there's a garage with a car in it. So we're going to just go drive 6,000 with a full tank of gas. And the GM can then go, well, the tires are flat and it's in disrepair because it hasn't been used in years. So, you still have to hoof it. Or that sort of thing. I'm tossing a light example out there, but it's, that's about the size of it.
Is there something, hey, Table Runner Crispy, question for you. You just said 1D is beer and pretzels game and it's used to hang out. 2D, you kind of gave the breakdown. Do you find anything offensive about the 1D game? Do you ever play a 1D game? I love a good 1D game. I'm just curious.
Crispy and I think, share a enjoyment of DCC, which I would consider a beer and pretzel style game, because it's very. You could probably 2D it, but it's a very, because of how much time you spend out of character, because just the game requires it. I love the system still, and I've had conversations not to speak with him. So if he says shut up bacon, I'm shutting up.
Right.
But I've had conversations with him specifically about DCC where, he has at least admitted begrudgingly that he enjoys it.
That's
funny.
It's funny because I never like the whole 4D thing is kind of new to me. And I was always kind of trying to figure, like, I love reading DCC, right? I love it. And I love the idea. Thanks, Table Runner. No, I don't find any of them offensive.
There he goes. DCC is one. And to be clear, I was putting words in his mouth because I'm teasing him at the moment.
You're
on the right channel for that.
Like he knows. I hopefully he knows. I don't mean anything by it. He didn't actually. It wasn't begrudging. He just admitted a legitimate enjoyment for DCC, and I enjoy it too.
I love DCC, but he's absolutely correct. You spend so much time with your face in the book. If you've got any kind of magic going on, a lot of the character classes, at the same time, it's, it makes me think about how we enjoy games, because I feel like I enjoy DCC differently playing it rules as written as I enjoy, say, OSE rules as, what I mean? It's such a different, and it's just little bitty things, that change that experience for you. So, but I love DCC. I love I ran my kids through a funnel and I destroyed them all. I killed all of their characters. And oh my God, it was like Christmas. I loved it. And they had a great time too. So, but it is a 1D game. What do you think is your favorite 4D game? I asked Max when he was on, and he gave me a pretty surprising answer. What system do you think works best for 4D?
Me personally,
Yeah.
of the ones that I played, no, Bacon, someone else. They have another
Yeah, I
guest.
was gonna say no.
Sorry, yeah,
Bacon.
sorry
Why don't
about
you
that.
call a friend, bro?
Yeah, like what kind of idiot question
Yeah,
is that?
phone
Clearly,
a
I'm
friend.
buying time to give you an answer to the question. I really like Mongoose Traveler 2E, which is the genre answer. I also have recently begun to get into EZD6. I've only played a game or two of EZD6, but I do
you-
quite like it. I
you
think
just
that's
made a
something
friend.
that really gets out of the way. Say again?
You just made a friend. Gary
Oh, great.
loves Easy D6. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really great system.
EZD6 is, I use the word elegant, but I just wonder how limited it is.
Yeah.
Like, what can you really do with it? How far can you go? Can you
I've
do
never
more
really
than
played it.
Conan or Mad Max? I don't know.
I have a question about the 4D just to the 4D guys, and I'll if you know what, I'm going to make sure I ask Crispy this too, because we're going to have you on because the 4D stuff is really intriguing me. It's been intriguing me for a while, so I'm going to float this to you, Bacon, because you have some experience.
Mhm.
Some of these dice pool games, like one of my personal favorites from the 90s was the Seventh Sea, and then you have like the Year Zero game engine. To me, I feel like those games were designed to sort of have the player do the 4D thing. I'm going to do, my character is doing X, and they describe X, and they're in character, and then they roll their dice pool, and then you decide, was it successful or not, and if it wasn't successful, how was it not successful, that sort of thing. Have you run games like that, like dice pool games with 4D, and if so, did you think those systems actually were good for 4D?
So all of the dice pool systems that I've ever run, I've run before I was really aware of the 4D style or a more in character style of game, because I came up in the hobby like everyone else did. I will say this. I love dice pools. I love building dice pools. I just love something about that. So like West End games, Star Wars, Vampire the Masquerade.
Greatest game ever. West
I,
End, yes. Yep.
Did you know that it's actually the West End games? It wasn't the main rule book. It was the whatever the other book was. I can't remember what it was called. So actually the first place that the Twi'lek race is named, or species, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's a piece of Star Wars canon, which I think is kind of fun.
So off track. I'm such a D6 Star Wars fucking nerd. There are so many great things about that system and that game. I don't know why y'all are playing anything else. I don't know why I can't get a D6 game going. It is so good. It's so fun.
I wanted to run a D6 Star Wars D6 game a little while back. I don't want to go into the reason why, because it's kind of political. my players just didn't like the themes, I guess. But I wanted to play, like, you're in the rebellion, blah blah blah. But anyway, one of these days I'm going to get to run that campaign, because it was set completely for the players to do whatever they want. Did they want to play with the rebellion? Did they want to work with the Hutts? Did they want to work for the Empire? I was going to leave it totally up to them.
Matt,
yeah.
one day we've got to do a Star Wars episode, because I've run so many fucking Star Wars games under.
You were the one giving me advice how to run this. Do you remember that?
I think, yes.
It was like a year or so ago.
Yep. I think Star Wars, if you're running a Star Wars, we're supposed to be talking about serious shit, but let me tell you about running a Star Wars game. Right? There's a checklist. And if you don't think that you're very creative, or you're like, how does everybody do this or whatever, if you're running a Star Wars game, put on episode 4 and just start making a list of what you see in the movie. Don't write out the fucking story. Just a simple sequence of events from the beginning. Music. Anyway, I love that system. I'll back off. I don't know why we're not playing D6. tomorrow. Anyway,
We're
It's
waiting on
great.
you. So about dice pools. What? Well, what's your favorite dice pool game, Bacon?
I'm gonna say Vampire the Masquerade, or yeah, I'll say Vampire the Masquerade. It was the very first dice pool game that I was ever involved with, and I have extremely fond memories of the group of players, of the regularity. Like there was even I was a LARP nerd for a little while, so like even just that, where we would pick a location, it would be someone's house or in the woods somewhere, and we would just kind of get together and do that whole thing. So I have very very fond memories of that. So that's going to be my favorite dice pool game. I think Requiem's the better game, but the Masquerade is really kind of where I cut my teeth with that whole situation. So I have a particular fondness for that.
Cool. Yeah, I my experience with Vampire and World of Darkness was this dude I met at Denny's in the 90s who was really into the game but never played it. And he got me and a friend of mine into like the idea of it. And my buddy was really into werewolf, and I got into mage. And we made characters, but we just hang out at Denny's until 4 a.m. drinking coffee, talking about playing, but we never played. So I almost think we were in 4D mode, role playing, but
You
not
were
really.
role playing role players.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
We were Critical Role before Critical Role was Critical Role.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, I have like, I mean, you got me talking about it now, so I'm just going to start talking about it. Like, Vampire, coming up, my parents were always very, I'll say permissive. So when I started to get into Dungeons and Dragons, my parents, who were very religious, were they didn't really express a concern. There were some people at the church who would express a concern, and my mom would be like, "No, it's just a game. It's no problem." She got me my first Monstrous manual in the binder with the loose leaf paper. Like that was a birthday gift that I received
I
because
remember
I
those.
wanted it. And then Vampire came out, and I bought the book with my own money, and that was a bridge too far. It was vampires. She didn't like the crosses. She didn't like any of that stuff. So I kind of had to keep that book in my book bag and just take it with me wherever I went. Because if my mom found it, it was in the trash. So like there was that kind of like memory that I have about it. So it's just, I have a very storied history with that game. So I just love it.
Oh, I think that first experience any gamer has, whatever the game is going to have a lasting impression in terms of how their trajectory with the hobby. Because I love BX and specifically the red box, precisely on how I got involved and how I got my first red box. My parents were not that they were religious, but they saw a lot of problems with the church and they sort of like excommunicated themselves almost. They were Catholic. They just stopped going. Lapsed Catholic, I guess is what they would be
Like
considered.
every Catholic I've ever met, they
Yeah.
just stopped going one day.
Yeah, but they knew the crap. There was a lot of bullshit, and they love 60 minutes. And I remember Sunday nights were 60 minutes nights, and I'd sit there and I'd be drawing, coloring, whatever, reading a book or whatever. My parents were watching 60 minutes, and I remember the Gary Gygax episode where they had some dude on talking about the demons and shit coming out of the book. But my mom, when she said when she saw that I was interested in it, she was just like, she gave me a look, and I go, "Mom, it's just a game," and she's like, "Okay." She was just happy that her, over her son with an overactive imagination had an outlet, I guess. But yeah, I love D&D, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've been so like loyal to the brand, even through the 4E era. For so long. It wasn't until the OSR where I was finally like, I'm done with you, Watsy. The OSR is where I am, and it gives me what I'm looking for,
How does the whole 40 thing we were talking about earlier? And I know you're like, I'm not a spokesman, but everybody's vouching for you. Almost like,
yeah. I think a lot of 4D, a lot of 4D folks are in the
like
chat.
A lot of the 4D guys became 4D, but you seem to be born like naturally, and that's why they're claiming you. You know what I mean?
I
Like
don't know if I'm born naturally, but here's the thing. I think that a lot of what I discuss on my channel supports the 4D style. It supports the 4D, the vision, the mindset. Not all of it and not at all times. And that's not to say that it doesn't also support other styles, but I think that
right.
it does provide a great deal of support for the 4D.
Well, what I'm taking away from all this, and I think this is really, to me, it's really fascinating because I think that if you look at like gamer culture, RPG culture, whatever the fuck you want to call it, you're really 99% of the time you're talking about dungeon masters or game masters because they seem to be the people who kind of push the hobby forward. And you might be the only person I know who's coming from a player perspective, right? So when we have these talks about rule of cool or year zero or 4D or whatever it is, I almost think you should have like a disclaimer on your podcast, like this is from players' perspective, because
It's very
I had
funny. Like,
assumed you were a DM, and it gives me a completely different perspective on what's
most people
happening.
do assume that I'm a DM, and I have DM'd in the past. It's not like I don't have that experience just right now, and it's been a long while. I'm just a player right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea, I'm not, and I think here's why. I think most Dungeon Tube, I'll call it, channels try to give advice, and I don't fall into that category. And I think a lot of, and I don't know what the reason for this is. It'd be great to like conduct a survey and get some answers, but I think a lot of, yeah, thank you, Crispy. Yes, I would certainly agree with that. I think that there is evidence. I mean, I think that most of the 4D guys would tell me that it does certainly resonate with the style, but it also supports other groups as well, or other, factional divides, I'll call it. And sometimes it attempts to mend the divide. I don't know how successful I'm ever going to be with that. Probably not, but sometimes that's what I attempt to do. Now I've completely lost my train of thought. What was I
It's all
talking
right. I've
about?
lost
I'm
mine too.
gonna
We're good.
well, I'm gonna interject. Because it's basically something that like Crispy was just saying here about your ideas resonating and being from a player's perspective. One of the problems that, and I've been saying this for a while, and I've gotten some, heat for saying this. The problem is a lot of game masters in this space on YouTube, Rumble, wherever the hell they are. They're speaking from a particular perspective to a very small audience.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like this quote unquote community we're in. And I don't think it's like this ivory tower mentality. And that's not me to try to promote anti-intellectualism. We have Bacon on. Okay. I'm not against the intellectual. What I'm against is not getting down into the muck. And the fact that you're a player, you're actually seeing firsthand what game masters are doing, especially when they're getting enamored with a particular talking head or two, right? So I think your perspective is fantastic on that level, coupled with the fact that you're doing the research, putting all this like effort, and that's really what it is. Because like, yeah, all those books back here, that's all from like my college days. I studied philosophy, blah blah blah. There came a point where I was kind of done with it, and I, like I said at the beginning of the stream, I don't do what you're doing anymore. I just don't. And so I'm a lazy piece of shit. At the end of the day,
No, come
you're
on.
doing the work. No, I'm trying to give credit where credit's due, sir. So I hope
I'll shut
everyone's
up.
going to Better with Bacon on YouTube and subscribing to his channel, because you're going to get a perspective that's going to hopefully enrich your experience as a tabletop RPGer, and you're going to see from a player's perspective what a lot of us in this industry are spouting off on. And I think you should really
About that, about the
go
player's
ahead.
perspective, I don't necessarily know if I really give a player's perspective, because I don't really talk about GM behavior, player behavior, that sort of thing. I try to take a holistic approach to understanding role-playing games, and like You don't need to be a director to understand film. It may help you understand direction. It may help you understand what you're looking at, and you might watch the movie differently. I've actually worked in Hollywood before. I've been a PA. I've been a second AD. I've done these things. And so there are things that I will like. I'll watch the intro to Twin Peaks season 3. Right? Are you familiar with that intro? How it pans up over the waterfall that's kind of
I want to
cascading
be
down.
cool enough to be a Twin Peaks guy, but I'm just not.
That's okay.
I'll go on
setup.
record and saying I don't like Twin Peaks.
Okay, that's fine. Here's the setup. The setup is this. In one section in the opening, the camera pans up and you kind of go off the edge of a waterfall. And then that water that's flowing becomes a red curtain that's like waving, like it kind of is a juxtaposition of water and fire almost. Because I've worked on sets before, my thought is below the television, there is some idiot waving that curtain to generate that effect. So, like, you do definitely watch things differently, but you don't need any of that to talk about film in the way that they're really meant to be discussed, and that's as art objects. And while I don't think that any particular role-playing session is an art object necessarily, I do think that you can approach them from that holistic sort of top-down viewpoint, not mentality, but the top-down viewpoint. So you can sort of see everything that's going on. And that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to understand them as a medium and not necessarily take a specific perspective. But I do happen to also be a player. So I don't know. Maybe that colors my opinion.
No, I actually don't think it does color your opinion. Sorry, Gary. I just want to because I didn't mean to like pigeonhole you in that regard. But I think the fact that you're not, how do I want to put this? I've said this before. Game masters, I think, generally speaking, not always, but generally, are probably the more creative person at the table because there is a draw to being a game master that is very different from being a player, and your focus on understanding what the TTRPG thing is not colored by me, the game master, me, the god of the world. No, you're actually coming at it. It's like, hey, I just want to know what's going on here, and I just want to understand it so I have a better time with it, blah, 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 right? And that's really what I meant. So
okay. I get you.
Yeah. So but I don't know where else
I pigeonholed you. I'm sorry.
Did you?
Thanks, Gary.
Because I called you. Well, I said player, and I really stressed on that. Sorry, but
that's no. You don't have to apologize for that. And I get where you guys are coming from because I think the vast majority of the channels out there are from a GM's perspective.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'm not a GM, but I don't think that I'm giving it from a player perspective. But what
I will say is that there is but as we were talking when the conversation first started, there were some things you said where I was like, just kind of like I had to really kind of look around the corner to get your angle on it, right?
Okay.
I couldn't see it straight on.
Gotcha.
And then as soon as you were like, well, I haven't run a game in a while, it was like, oh, I got to get a whole new lens for this now.
Gotcha. Okay.
You know what I mean? I need a whole new filter for this. And I think it does make a difference. And honestly, Bacon, lean into that. Nobody else seems to be doing it. And you're doing it at such a level. I think, I have played with people who take role-playing games seriously, but I've had very few players who really put a lot of thought into what it means to be a player, in a role-playing game, right? Like you obviously do and you talk about. So yeah, I really appreciate. I wouldn't lean into that, buddy. You've got something. Your point of view is special. It's from a
I thank you.
No one else has.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I am genuinely appreciative. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And again, I think with a lot of the GMs, and I'm guilty of this as well. I think my way is the right way. That's why I do what I do. I wouldn't do my way if I didn't think it was right. Right. So to have someone who's, I don't want to say player perspective, but unfiltered, unbiased perspective, maybe a pure logic, pure, analytic perspective, I think is great because it puts a check, on guys like me and Gary who are, arrogant game masters who think what we do is awesome. No,
What you
no,
do
let's,
is awesome.
but
About every 3 sessions out of 4, I
it is
approach
awesome.
really cool.
Yes,
And
yeah.
But never awesome.
I think the fourth one is a coin toss. It can be awesome or it can be a complete disaster. That's the thing about. So, Bacon, and I've kind of been curious on your opinion on this. I have been running this rules as written procedural OSE game for about 4 or 5 months, something like that. And there's a certain kind of fun that comes with just doing that, as if it's a game board, right? At the same time, I find myself kind of drifting, like, what's the next game I'm going to run? And I'm looking at year 0, I'm looking at EZD6, those kind of things. As a role player, like, what do you prefer? Do you think Crunch could you do what you do in Acts 2? Could you do it?
I mean, yeah, I just think so. Here's the qualifier, right? The qualifier is you want to be in character as much as possible. The as much as possible does all the heavy lifting because certain systems are going to give you a larger possibility of being in character than other systems. So I could find the places to be in character in an Acts 2 game. I think it's not difficult at all, as long as, like, there are certain things that you need as a sort of gosh, I don't even know what to call it, a fertile ground, I guess, to do the role playing. Like, GMs have to be comfortable with allowing the silence to breathe a little bit, describing a situation, letting me play into it. So, like,
Amen.
There have to be some things that are sort of agreed upon among the players and the GM, but I could get right into character. Like, I've gotten into character in Alien games. I've gotten into character in, typical fantasy, other sci-fi. It's not difficult. And you just kind of have to find the moment to launch yourself in. And I will say that some games are better at that, at providing you that room, than other games are. But I could certainly do it in Acts 2. I am very positive I could do it in Acts 2.
I guess I'm curious because I wonder if that is a true divide between the sort of simulationist rules guys and, say, like the 4D role players. Is there a place where, like, I don't see the simulationist guys becoming all of a sudden 4D role players, but is there that middle? Is there a place where they meet? You know what I mean? I'm just, in my mind, I couldn't imagine doing what you do in a system like Axe or like, I don't know, anything with any kind of crunch to it. I feel like I would, like we were talking about earlier with DCC, how you're always having to look up tables.
Well, I think with the crunch, it's if you're always having to look up tables, like if the game is constantly requiring you to perform actions out of character, that's going to look like everyone else. I'm going to look like some dude sitting at a table going through a book for a table. It's going to look like everyone else. But when I'm given the opportunities to sort of, push into a scene and get into my character, that could look different than what someone else would role play. I will tell you where I am moving. I will speak in first person. I will describe to you what I'm doing. And it's usually, not even usually, it's always going to be from a first person perspective. I have played with people who will describe what the character is doing from a third person perspective. He does this, he does that. She goes here, she turns on the radio, she tries to hail the ship. Like, I've played with people like that. I can still play in character. I can still speak in first person. I can still approach them, say, hey, I am doing this, I am doing that. And I have done that before, and I will continue to do that. It happens quite a lot at con games or like one-offs. Happens quite a lot in those situations, but it can be done. It's typically, and this is, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but typically there is at least a person who will come to me afterwards and say, hey, that's really good role. You're really good at this. You're a really good role player. It's like, I'm doing these simple things. I am just staying in character. I'm, speaking in first person and telling you what I'm doing.
On that note, I just wanted to going back to 4D because I don't know, I'm on a 4D kick, I guess. But
Here we go.
it's one of the reasons why I think, again, that it works as a descriptor, but I think it makes more sense as sort of an understanding of the ebb and flow of what's going on in a game. You're going to have those players who might touch upon, in like a very crunchy setting or a system, an opportunity like you described, where they can get into character, but then they shift back into 2D. And like, I think if you're a game master and you understand those different levels, like, you can easily roll with what's happening as the game is unfolding. And that to sort of like accommodate, maybe is the right word to look for. And sort of, I guess, mold yourself to that particular system, so such that you can have a crunchy game and still have players like really hardcore role playing. I don't know if that
and I'll tell you what, we've discussed like 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D. It's not uncommon among the 4D players to describe some games as 2.5D or 3.5D. So there are these sort of almost nebulous half steps. And I would think that a game it can only ever, let me think about how to phrase this. If I am role playing in character in what is traditionally thought to be a 2D game, it's still a 2D game. I'm not going to be able to sort of pull it out of where it lives just for the fact that I happen to be role playing as much as possible. But provided that most 2D games aren't necessarily focused on in-character play, maybe it becomes a 2.5D game. Maybe that's how you begin to describe those sorts of things. Now this might be like uncharted territory. This isn't necessarily something that I've discussed in the Discord with the 4D players, but I'm probably going to run there and say, hey, what do you think about this? To get the conversation going, because I want to know what everyone thinks about it. And again, I don't want to misrepresent. So if it turns out that I'm wrong, then please ignore me. But, to answer the question more directly, yes, I can role play in X2.
Very cool. All right. Well, we have 12 and a half minutes. We can go longer. I'm just being a dick. But let's ask the question that we have yet to ask and yet to even answer. Are we overthinking this hobby? It's been an hour and 47 minutes, and we have are we Bacon? Are we overthinking this?
And no.
Yes. But here's the thing. I think that it deserves to be. Right. People overthink movies. People overthink music. People overthink all those things all the time. The benefit that those things have is that they have treasuries of canon. That is, when I say a horror movie, you will reach for Alien. You will reach for Psycho. There are specific films that you will reach for as standards of a particular example. We don't really have a lot of that in TTRPGs. I would say that of the three things that I'm going to mention now, we're closest to that. But we also need poetics. We need to know how to consistently describe the things that are going on within the games. And we also need institutional memory. We need a way to acquire, maintain, and redistribute the poetics, that information. So I'm just a guy on the internet. I am never in a million years going to be able to get there, but I can do my best to try and contribute, right? So are we overthinking it? Yeah, I think it's being overthought, especially when you sit down at the table and praxis takes over. But I think that it is a subject that deserves elevation. I would like, as an outlet for human creativity, I would like tabletop role-playing games to achieve a similar level of conversation to film and music and literature and theater.
Gary, what's your thoughts?
Man, I've been thinking about this all day. I don't know, Matt, if you remember when we first met, I remember telling everybody to chill the fuck out. This is a goddamn game. Do you remember?
You said
Like, I
that.
was
You
like,
said that last
we
week.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've got jobs, we've got kids. You know, there's all kinds of things going on, and this game is supposed to be an activity that takes us away from all of that, right? The problem is that I think there's different degrees. You know, I don't think the average, let's face it, 90% of people that we call people who are playing role-playing games, 90% of those people are playing 5e. I know everybody's like, WotC sucks, it's going down. No, it's not. It's fucking not. It's Levi's, it's Coca-Cola, it's not. 90% of the people are playing that game. They don't know what's going on, and I don't think they take it very seriously at all, or they'd be playing a different game. I think there's different degrees to this. You know, you and I, Matt, we've been talking about role-playing games in public, you know, for other people to listen to for probably, you know, 3.5 to 4 years. As you know, we've known each other for 5, right? We took some time off.
Yeah.
And we do take it seriously, but I think it should always be considered a hobby unless it's your living, and you need to be very careful about how you think. I've met too many third-party creators who have made a couple $100 and think they're game designers. Yes, you are, but you got to take care of your real life. It's a game. You got to take care of your real life. If this game is taking time away from things, as if it's hurting you in any other way, yeah, you're taking it too seriously. I don't know. I see a lot of guys who I feel like should maybe put down the rule book and go outside every once in a while. Yeah, I think we're taking.
Is that the result of the conversation, though, or are there maybe other factors at play?
So I think that role-playing games, like, there's other hobbies that are like role-playing games, not just adjacent to, but I think that there are hobbies that can be so immersive that people tend to use them as a replacement, you know, for life in general. Right.
For sure. I agree.
And I think role-playing games really appeal to that nature in people because it allows you to be somebody else. You know what I mean? And,
sure.
You know, if you go to a game store, if you go to a con, I just think there are people who feel, you know, it's always been a geek hobby, and geeks in essence tend to be a little shy. They tend to, you know, not be too social. And I think that gaming can be used as much as it can be used to make friends. I also think it can be used as a shield. I don't know, man. I just think that there's a lot of shit out there. These are games. I love them, but they're games. You know what I mean? Get out there and live a little bit. I think I do think we take it too seriously.
I'm going to answer the question by not answering the question. Earlier this week, people who know me well know that years ago, many moons ago, I made I had a decision to make. Do I go to law school or do I go to culinary school? I chose law school, but I do have a passion for. I still question. But I have a passion for food and cooking. It's one of the reasons why I'm like 60 pounds overweight. But I stumbled upon a chef that I, for some reason, was off my radar. But a guy named Marco Pierre White. He's the guy who trained Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, he's the first guy, the youngest guy to ever get 3 Michelin stars
and give them back.
Correct. And I
You
was
guys are
listening.
love.
I know.
Sorry.
Bacon and I are about to become
I
really
know
good
Marco
friends.
Pierre White. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was listening to Marco Pierre White make tomato sauce earlier this week in preparation. Well, I wasn't preparing for this stream, but all of a sudden I had this epiphany about game mastery. And it was some of the stuff he was saying about what you do in the kitchen as someone who creates. And I've always likened food, the creation of a dish, kind of to those mandala sand paintings that the Buddhist monks make. What they do is they spend hours to like colored sand and they create these beautiful freaking things, right? Hours, days, weeks to make these things. And then whew, they wipe it away clean, right? Food is very much the same way. You make this beautiful plate and then it gets devoured. I think your game is very much like that. You are creating an experience that's going to happen. It's going to be meaningful for the people there, and then it's done. I think, are we overthinking the hobby? I think it's good to achieve those Michelin stars, but there comes a point where you have to give them back and just play the damn game. And if you can do what Marco Pierre White does with knives, when he's chopping an onion, he's not even looking at it. He's looking at the camera. If you can do that, I think you've achieved game mastery. So that's my answer to the question.
Well, a lot of, if I can build on that just for a moment, not
Sure.
to steal your thunder, but
It's your show.
I think that now it's your show.
You're the guest. We want you on.
Well, I appreciate that, but you know, I kind of tried to get at this earlier when I likened the tabletop role playing game event to theater. I think your mandala is a much better example. The reason that they destroy those is because the temporal nature of the sand mandala is considered to be a part of the beauty. It is only here for a brief moment, and you only get to experience it if you're able to, and then it's gone forever. And
Yes.
all that's left is the memory of those who were able to experience it. So I agree with you. I think that it's very temporal. And you know, while you can get into whether or not it's beautiful because of that.
I was about to say, I think the reason why your instincts for treating RPGs like film, like literature, is precisely because it is beautiful. What happens at the table is meaningful for those who are present. And it's why, like, when you talk to other people about their games and they're like, oh, dude, this crazy thing happened. And you're just like, okay, I guess it's crazy. Well, you weren't there. But if you were there, it had meaning and it was special. And that's why I wonder, and this is going to open a whole door that we'll have to do a Bacon part 2 on.
Sure.
I wonder if the rules are enough to truly define a game. Yes, I'm playing X2. Yes, I'm playing VX.
Bro.
Yes, I'm playing this. But like, is that the game, or is the game when the players are actually running it? So with that, we are done for tonight. Cliffhanger.
Everybody's wrong but me. Listen.
Bacon, man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on. This was one of the best conversations I think we've had yet.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you guys, both of you. Thank you so much.
For those of you who have not done so, you effing better. Go to Better with Bacon at YouTube, click subscribe, and start watching this guy's video, man. Like, you're going to get some deep stuff about tabletop role-playing games. And
real quick about Bacon's videos, they are so deep and they are so good that a guy like me with a limited IQ sometimes finds themselves dozing off, and I have to watch them a couple times because he's so much smarter than me. And I'm that guy in class who was always like, can I just go to PE, please? But if
I
you
don't know
take
if
your,
I'm smarter than you because I quote the smart people. That's not me. That's them. And
I
I
don't know,
have
Bacon,
been.
you have a perspective on gaming that I find so unique and so refreshing. It's just that it is so goddamn deep. Um, for somebody like me, like the pool is shallow, bro. Don't dive. You're gonna bump your head. I just like to keep the water flowing, you know. Um, I love Bacon's videos. Everybody go to his channel, subscribe, like all that good stuff. I love him, Bacon. Thank you for being here and giving us your thoughts on
Thank you for
gaming.
having me. Thank you so much, both of you. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone in chat. I feel like I just stepped on you, Matt. I apologize.
No, that's fine. Yeah, chat's been great tonight as always. We love our fellow watchmen. Please hit like and subscribe to this video. As Chubby
Please.
Funster said, before you like bacon, make sure you like the second watch. And just because I have to get the last word in, by all means, dive in deep. And if it means bumping your head, do so because you'll become a better game master. Think about it. All right. With that said, our watch is ended. Next week, we're going to have Legacy Game Mastering, and we're going to talk about the most obscure games possible because that's what Legacy does. He's on my Discord server as Magneto. He's a good guy. I've known him for a few years.
He's running games.
And he is
running.
running
He is
games.
running games.
Myth.
Go.
I'm in. Yeah. So next week we'll be here. I'm not going on vacation. We'll be here. Thank you all, and enjoy your Labor Day. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Dude, get up. I think I heard something.